Hello, my name is Bradon, and my research topic involves STEM and the gender disparagements within it. Now, obviously, this is a very massive and well-traversed topic, so what we've been trying to do is, instead of taking a look at the entire topic as a whole, isolate on one of the variables that we think has not been explored the most in order to try to figure out what keeps female-oriented students from pursuing higher education within STEM. The variable that we isolated was the fact that gender disparagements don't just occur within STEM education, but STEM educators. Essentially, the genders of those who teach STEM at the college and high school level are very skewed. A study by Handley, someone who worked with the Department of Education to examine the staff professional rates across the nation, found that 73% of STEM educators identify as male. The problem with this is that 63% of female students do not achieve what we call exceeding grades when they are taught by a male-oriented professor. Essentially, an exceeding grade is scoring very high. On a scale of 100, they are scoring anything from 85 to below, so they're not achieving some of those higher grades. Well, the direct link here, and the problem is that generally people who achieve exceeding grades in these areas are the ones who then pursue that career. Only 23% of female-oriented students in STEM actively choose to engage in STEM education. The main idea here is that there's not a lot of female-oriented students who want to actively engage and become STEM educators, which thereby skews the problem even more, leading to more male-oriented teachers and all the bad effects that I brought up. The main part of our research is to try to isolate why this is happening. We want to figure out what's going on and see if we can try to solve for it. Well, when we're talking about STEM female-oriented education and educators, the main two paths that we found based on the literature is somewhat of an answer. The first possible path is this idea that female-oriented STEM education majors largely seem to perceive this social construct based off their environment and peers called all or nothing. Essentially, they believe they have to only pursue STEM and they have to exceed within STEM and they can't mix anything else in, or they risk either not succeeding or not being hireable. Essentially, what's going on here is, if you feel that you need to either fully throw yourself into STEM or risk losing the job, you're less likely to pursue also your education accreditation and things of that nature. The other second possible path you want to look for is this idea that female-oriented teachers and educators are being forced to taught a curriculum that is not inclusive to them. We call this a culturally relevant pedagogy, where the idea that the lessons that are being taught are not inherently linked to them, they're not relevant to them, and they force a situation where they are uncomfortable or are being forced to teach something that doesn't necessarily include them. This creates a bit of social disconnectivity where they are not actively pursuing it. Now, those are the two possible solutions that we found based on the literature. The literature, at least for this topic, is very scant, which is good because that leaves a lot for me to do. But our hope is to either identify which of these two topics is true or eventually find other paths or hypotheses which we can explore and eventually solve for. This hope of I'm still very early in my research, but the hope of my research is to ultimately try to create either lesson plans or solve for any of these problems in a way that'll promote the amount that female-oriented students want to go into the educational field as well as the STEM field. That way we can try to balance some of those STEM education numbers and make a more inclusive environment that promotes the success, the education, and the well-being of everyone.